Back in the age of fire, there was a man named Caius who took an interest in a bottomless chest I had in the shop. But this was not a regular bottomless chest. It didn't store items. It gave you items, very valuable items. And you never knew when it was going to give you something. Sometimes once a month, sometimes once a year. It was an irresistible mystery box to anyone who loved gambling, and Caius wanted it very badly. But I told him, there's more to that box. It has a dark side. Every time you reach into the void at the bottom of the box, you risk the avarice taking you. It grabs you from the void and pulls you into it. If it gets you, you will never be seen again. So, you may pull many treasures from the bottomless darkness, but each time you do, your avarice grows, and no one who has owned it and used it more than a few times has died a natural death. All of them have disappeared, taken by the avarice that lives in the box. He asked me how I got it, asked me if I stole it. I told him, above all, no one can steal the box. It must be given by its owner freely, for when the chest is stolen, the avarice of the box takes the form of a devouring mimic, stalks and devours its captor, and then returns to its owner. No one, high or low, can take the box. I told him the box was given to me by the widow of its last owner. Caius said he had to have it. I warned him over and over, but he offered me a great amount of money, and so I sold it to him. From what I heard, he pulled a few good items from it, but like all the others, it took him. So, the box passed to his son. Same thing. Pulled a few good items, and then he disappeared. So the box went to his son, and his son went the same. But Caius's great-great-great-grandson, Nestor, was different, smarter, less prone to impulse. So he tried it a couple times, but resisted, was cautious. He would open it, stare into the darkness, but wouldn't reach in. But he had a neighbor named Easton that was obsessed with the box. Every time Easton saw Nestor, he would ask if Nestor had dared reach into the box. Easton couldn't stand the thought of all those treasures the box would give up being lost to hesitancy, and he couldn't keep his mind off the box. Of course, he knew why Nestor was hesitant. Nestor had explained to him the risks and told him what had happened to all his ancestors who took from the box. So Easton completely understood why he wouldn't risk reaching into the box. Even I wouldn't do it, Easton thought. Too much risk. But still, Easton couldn't help dreaming of the fantastic things the box would give, some priceless even. But then one day Easton procured an interesting item that would tip the scales of the box's risk in favor of the one who also had this item. The item was a white porcelain plate with an eye carved into the center. The plate was enchanted. It had the ability to foresee the death of anyone who touched the plate. If the person who touched the plate was on a path that would result in their death within the next 6 months, the plate would turn black as night upon their touch. The plate was terrifying to everyone, but no one who knew of its ability could resist touching it. They had to know, especially since the fate could be avoided if it was to be by accident or misfortune. Easton thought to himself that perhaps the plate could inform him when it was safe to reach into the box. But he had to be sure. He had to test it. And if the test worked, he would then do whatever it took to acquire the box for himself. So he took Nestor to a fortune-teller and convinced Nestor that this fortune-teller could inform him of when he could reach into the box. Of course, the real informer was the plate Easton cleverly placed for Nestor to touch. And it worked. It remained white, and Nestor was told to reach into the box. But more importantly, it turned black, and Nestor was told to stay away from the box for at least 6 months. Then, after 6 months, the plate remained white again, proving it could be used to safely navigate the danger of the box. Easton was beside himself with glee, knowing the treasures of the box could be his if only he could find a way to obtain the box. He knew he couldn't steal it, so he had to find a way to convince Nestor to give it to him. First he told Nestor the fortune-teller had moved to Orlando, so reaching into the box would never be safe again. Then he offered buying the box from him, but Nestor always refused. At last, he resolved to offering Nestor an absolutely ridiculous sum of money, an amount that would nearly break him. He warned his wife Farah that he was considering this, but he assured her that after they acquired the box, their fortune could be regained with the items the box was sure to bestow. Now, Farah knew all about the box, and this idea of Easton's sounded like madness to her. She was aware of how many men disappeared messing with that box, and she had no faith her husband had found some foolproof way of beating the devil that lived within it. Furthermore, Easton had already spent an exorbitant amount of money on his stupid psychic plate. It seemed to her that Easton was determined to bankrupt the family, and she would end up alone, penniless on the street. As far as she was concerned, he couldn't be reasoned with. She had to stop him. So she devised a plan. First, she would convince Nestor to travel to Orlando to see his fortune-teller. While he was gone, she would forge a letter from Nestor telling her husband that he had a change of heart, and he could come pick up the chest as soon as it was convenient. She knew her husband would be too beside himself to wonder why payment wasn't mentioned. And she knew what would happen if her husband took the box without Nestor knowing. All she had to do now was not be home when it happened, preferably with many people so suspicion could never fall on her. And as she suspected, Easton didn't question it. He quickly scooped up the chest and sat it in his house, waiting for his first chance at its mysterious blessings. But the plate turned black. Strange, he thought. As far as he knew, it normally took a few tries before the box became dangerous. No matter, he thought. 6 months wasn't that long, and he had all the time in the world now. But he was wrong, and his mistake met him that night in the form of a terrible devouring mimic walking him down in his own living room and painting the floor in his blood. Easton was assumed dead by all after finding the living room caked in blood, and his wife Farah was never suspected to have anything to do with it. To add insult to injury, she later sold Nestor the plate for an extreme price, explaining how he could use it to navigate the dangers of the box. Still, Nestor, like the rest, disappeared one day, and no one could say what happened. By that time he had acquired a lot of wealth from the box, and his wife wanted nothing to do with it. So she dropped it off in my shop, and it's been here ever since.
Well, that's it, folks. Hope you liked that. And if you did like it, please like and subscribe. I plan on doing a few more of these Dark Souls story. I'm a big Dark Souls fan, and it was fun to do it. It's fun to tap into that lore. So if you like it, please subscribe and check in again. Thanks all.